The search for the Sky Islands has begun as we make our way to Jaya, and we're joined by the new member of our crew, Nico Robin, unless you are watching the anime, where we have not one, not two, but three filler arcs to get through. Hello and welcome to Matt Reads Manga, a channel where I'm reading and watching One Piece for the first time. Now, last time we were finishing up Alabasta and set our sails back out on the Grand Line where the log post was pointing towards the sky, unless you're watching the anime where you have to wait quite a bit. And you guys told me about the filler, and I said, well, it's not that bad after only watching Warship Island, but now with three filler arcs, I'm definitely feeling the weight of it a little bit. First up, we have the post Alabasta arc, and it's only 5 episodes of extended backstories and side stories of the Straw Hats that aren't Luffy. And honestly, I actually really liked this, and this is my most favorite filler arc that I've had so far. And as far as filler goes, I truly believe these episodes are worth watching. You get an episode about things like Chopper creating his rumble balls and training with Correa. Nami begins working on a world map. Zoro's bounty hunting days are explored just a little bit more. And Usopp teaches a kid essentially how to blow things up. Now, could you skip this? Absolutely. I mean, it's only 5 episodes and you could probably watch this just about anywhere, but I do think it does provide some good character development. And the 2 episodes I really enjoyed was Chopper making his rumble balls, and you get a little bit more backstory on his medical training, how Correa had him just memorizing medical books for years before she'd actually let him practice on a patient. Then she gets herself sick and Chopper has to do everything on the fly. This is all told through us through memories, and in the present, Chopper is a little wary of Nico Robin, and he doesn't quite trust her yet. At the end of this episode, he's a little more warm to her. The other episode in this group that I personally enjoyed was Sanji's episode, where the Straw Hats accidentally run into a marine ship while they're sailing into the fog. Sanji then helps a young marine cook who fell off board and helps him cook a pot of curry after he spills it, and this helps him earn the respect of the Marines and his commanding officers. He's been a chore boy for about a year, and Sanji helps him with the help of his own flashbacks working with Zepp and how he learned the fundamentals of cooking. Next, we move to Goat Island, which is only 3 episodes, and I think this one is just about okay. I'd probably put it on the same level as Warship Island. The Straw Hats find themselves chased into the fog by the Marines and get stranded on an uncharted island and are soon met by a horde of goats and an old man named Zenny, who it turns out was actually a private moneylender to pirates. And he also dreamed of becoming king of the pirates. Chopper discovers that the old man only has a few days to live, so the crew rallies around him trying to fix his old ship and trying to prolong his life. Meanwhile, the Marines are moving in since they believe there's probably a lot of treasure there. It's a heartwarming little story, and I think it benefits from only being 3 episodes, but it was at this point now we're 8 episodes into filler arc that I felt the weight of this filler in between Alabasta and Jaya. Since I'm reading the manga first and then going back and watching the anime, I loved Jaya, which we'll get to, so I was really kind of ready to jump into it, and I think this is the first time I kind of felt it. And next is Rainbow Mist. Now, I do try to be fair to the filler arcs and give them a legitimate chance for me to actually enjoy them. So after finishing Rainbow Mist, I kind of thought, I wonder if it's just the weight of it, the whole thing of 3 filler arcs. But the more I went back and typed up my notes and was sort of revisiting these episodes, I just don't think it's that good. Over the course of these filler arcs, Nico Robin has been reading a book with the title Rainbow Mist on it. And this mist appears around Berluca Island that serves as a gateway to another dimension where time is different. It's kind of like Interstellar, but with rainbows. Now, inside the mist, the Straw Hats run into a group of kids known as the Pumpkin Pirates who've been there for 50 years. And the dimension is known as Apes Concert, which is kind of a weird name for it. The 4Kids version actually called it Wrecker's Reef, so here might be another situation where I'll give the 4Kids version a little bit of credit, as I do think that's kind of a cooler name. And once they're able to leave that dimension, they all return to their original timeline, kind of like Jumanji. Now, with the filler out of the way, let's dive into Jaya, because I loved this arc. Of course, it does serve really as the tease and the build up to Skypiea, but for how short this arc is, it is absolutely jam-packed, and I was not expecting that at all. We immediately see a ship falling from the sky itself, then the Straw Hats are confused as to why the log post is pointing towards the sky. But this is where our new member of the crew, Nico Robin, steps in with her wisdom, and that seems like that's going to be her role going forward. We know she's studying history, but it also seems that she's going to be the voice of reason for the Straw Hats, or at least that's what I'm starting to feel like. Next, we see them searching underwater using barrel diving suits, and I loved this as well. It just sort of really fit the personality of the Straw Hats. Usopp made these, and like Sanji is still wearing his suit, but he's just got this barrel over him. It's just great, and it's all of these small little details that really do help the world come together that Oda is creating, and it's just tiny little details like this, but those are the ones I love that I really feel help flesh out this story to be really what it is. Now, while diving underwater, they find a map for an island called Skypiea, and let me say that the Skypiea saga is the one going into One Piece knowing nothing about it that I was most excited for. I don't know why. I think it's just something about growing up and playing Skies of Arcadia on the Dreamcast, anything to do with Sky Pirates, and I'm in. Now, as we're heading to Jaya, we see these mysterious giant silhouettes, and all I can think is, are we near Elbath? Are these those giants? But that doesn't seem to be the case. I mean, the last time we saw giants was on Little Garden, and that's a ways away, and they sort of teased about these mysterious things happening on the Grand Line, but they haven't come to full fruition just yet. I think that's something that's going to be explained in Skypiea. It seems like they were sort of teasing that they were understanding just a little bit more about these things and talking about the mysteries, but it was just sort of brushed off as, well, weird things happen on the Grand Line. I'm sure that's going to be explained in Skypiea, but I'm just going to keep that in the back of my head. Now, if you guys have been watching any of my past videos, you know I've been doing the reviews of the entire saga, but I'm glad that I'm switching it here and just doing the arcs because it lets me dive into them a little bit more. And of course, I will be doing some of the filler arcs along the way, but Jaya blew my expectations out of the water with just how much world building was going to be in this tiny little arc. We see Luffy talking to a man at a bar, and they sort of get into this little rivalry, this little tiff as they're talking about what food they like and what food they don't like, only for it to be revealed that it's actually Blackbeard. And I loved how it was actually revealed to the reader or the watcher, and Luffy still doesn't know who he met, but we, the audience, do. And they have a conversation about the pirate's dream, which is really the main theme in this arc, as the villain Bellamy is trying to establish his new age of pirates. Now, Bellamy as a villain was pretty easily defeated by Luffy, and we'll dive more into that, but he really began to challenge Luffy on his dreams or his ideals. So far, it feels like each villain Luffy has fought, while physically has been a challenge, each one also challenges Luffy on something different as well, and we've seen his character grow because of it. And here with Bellamy, it's the first time Luffy has been challenged not only on just becoming king of the pirates, but also what it means to even be a pirate in the first place. I mean, Bellamy and his crew are just absolute jerks. Luffy and Zoro deciding not to fight back as they made that promise to Nami was so powerful of a moment, and it just came into full fruition later when Luffy actually fights him. But if you notice, immediately Zoro had his blade drew right onto Bellamy's neck, so you knew going into this, Bellamy might not be that big of a challenge. Bellamy's pirates see his old $30 million bounty first, and they think, okay, this guy's nothing, and then later when they see that $100 million bounty, it was so comical as they realize, uh-oh, maybe these guys aren't messing around. Luffy and Zoro literally stand there as Bellamy spits in his face, and you're just so ready for Luffy to absolutely destroy this guy so that they save it for the end of the arc after Bellamy does a few things to really tick Luffy off. And this is where you kind of feel like we're getting into a little bit of power scaling with bounties, as when they do realize later, uh-oh, Luffy's got that $100 million bounty. It was so great the way that this arc ends.
Those two together are worth 160 million! Their bounties are higher than yours, Bellamy. Know what that means? You're dead meat!
But before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about the world building, because Oda really draws it out here and makes you feel like, wow, where we were at with the Alabasta saga, things are really coming to a head now with that power vacuum that existed from Luffy defeating Crocodile. And the weight of that carries in here, but it's not really like at the forefront. You see it kind of happening throughout all of these little conversations. We see Ace on board Buggy's ship, and his crew says they should attack Ace, only before Buggy stops him, saying under absolutely no circumstance should they attack Ace because he's part of Whitebeard's crew. And this is where the doors got blown off everything I was expecting in this arc, because Buggy says that Whitebeard is the single strongest man in all of the world. He could go toe to toe with Gold Roger, and he's the closest to obtaining the One Piece. What? Is it guarded by something that you need to be incredibly strong to get to? Does he just have the most clues? I mean, obviously that's as far as they go into actually him being that close to the One Piece. But yeah, I mean, this is something we're going to have to pay attention to and keep in the back of our minds as we continue on here. And just a quick aside, they haven't said if there's actually any connection between Whitebeard and Blackbeard. Also, I like how neither Blackbeard or Whitebeard actually have beards. It's kind of like the band ZZ Top, where you have the two guys with the massive beards and then the drummer who doesn't have a beard, but his last name is actually Beard. Also, we see that Whitebeard might not be doing so good. He's got some IVs running into him, and they didn't elaborate any further onto actually what that was. You also have to begin to wonder, why isn't Whitebeard in consideration for Crocodile's seat, as we began to see that council discussing who should actually fill Whitebeard's seat, and then it's revealed maybe it should be Shanks. A few other small details in this arc. We got a little bit of Sanji's backstory, or at least insight to the fact that he was born in the North Blue. We learned about the legend of Nolan the Liar, which I'm sure will come back, just like everything else, to play at some point. And it should be noted that Nolan was publicly executed, and I'm not sure if that's going to tie into Gold Roger at some point, but there was a similarity there, and maybe that will be something. And then we can't finish this episode without talking about the fact that Luffy knocked out Bellamy with a single punch.
You asked if I know how to throw a punch.
So long, Straw Hat!
The way Oda has been pacing the fights, where Luffy struggled up against John Krieg a little bit, struggled against Arlong just, a little bit, really struggled against Crocodile. Now that he's beaten Crocodile and he's gotten that $100 million bounty, we should realize Luffy is no joke, and I loved that he just wrecked Bellamy, because Luffy just took down one of the 7 warlords of the sea, and instead of making him struggle again, like some other series I'm a fan of, that's pretty much always setting up the next bigger fight and the next bigger fight and the next bigger fight. No. We already know Luffy's a boss. I want to see him destroy somebody, and that's exactly what he did against Bellamy. And who better than Bellamy, who's just nothing but an enormous jerk? Then, when Luffy is asked where he's going, he just immediately points straight up to the sky. Was the ultimate slap in the face to all of Bellamy's pirates, since they had all been ridiculing him and mocking him, which I guess is what you do in Mock Town, and saying, the Sky Island is a joke. But what you guys should really realize is that Bellamy is the joke, because that one punch was more significant than just Luffy being strong, because it also shows the power behind Luffy's strength, and maybe even the will of D. I don't know, that's something, again, want to pull back up. That might be a thing. But it's just the general idea of the new age of pirates versus Luffy's dream. Now, Luffy has to race back to the Straw Hat and Mont Blanc Cricket and his crew, who have been putting wings on the Going Merry, as they start sailing towards a knock-up stream as they head towards Skypiea and the Sky Islands. Also, while being chased by Blackbeard. And honestly, I was expecting this arc in general to be pretty chill. I thought, okay, it's just going to be maybe something like a Little Guard, right? That just really sets up Skypiea. And don't get me wrong, it did. I just was not expecting this arc to go nearly as hard as it did. And it honestly blew me away. My expectations, I guess, were sort of lower. Not that it would be bad, but just that it would be a little more chill. And it went full bore the entire time. Maybe I'm in the smaller group, because for what I've seen online, the Sky Island saga itself isn't one that people are super fans of, as far as I've seen online. But the way it's starting, man, this might now be my favorite saga and arc. But of course, to get there, I still have to read and watch Skypiea, which we will be doing next. So stay tuned for that video. It will be coming, and I have to decide whether or not I'm going to include G8, which is the next anime filler arc, in my Skypiea review, because from what I've seen, G8 seems to be the one anime arc that everyone says this is the one you should watch. It's the one that seems to be most beloved. So I might give it its own separate video and review, and maybe I'll just do Skypiea as its own video as well. So with that, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.